contarte de algún modo lo que en la playa me pasó. Era muy blanca, era muy bella y sobre mi hombro se posó. Una bandada de palomas volaban juntas bajo el sol, marchaban libres y una de ellas vino a mi lado y se quedó. Una paloma blanca a los ojos me miró. Una paloma blanca al verme triste lloró, porque me marché muy lejos de ti. Si todavía sientes, niña, aquel amor que te juré, busca en el cielo y la paloma te contará lo que lloré. Una paloma blanca a los ojos me miró. Una paloma blanca al verme triste lloró, porque me marché muy lejos de ti. Porque me marché muy lejos de ti. Una paloma blanca a los ojos me miró. Una paloma blanca al verme triste lloró, porque me marché muy lejos de ti. Una paloma blanca que al verme triste lloró, porque me marché muy lejos de ti. Y así fue mi amor, como te perdí.
Morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How you doing?
I'm good. In an industry first, I was just awarded Family of the Weekend at the Hilton Hotel I'm staying in, which was, I don't know whether it was mockery or not, to be honest, but we got a free bag of tea, which is I've never had before.
Wow. Well, congratulations for being such an idyllic, loving
Thank
family.
you. We're going to have that up on Kerfuffle as our first award win of 2022, so it's quite important.
Who's Whale the Clutch? Do we know who that is? Is that your son?
What is? What?
We've got somebody commenting who's called Whale the Clutch.
I think I know what's happening here. If you could just continue.
Okay, well, without further ado, I think we're going to have to introduce our guests. One of whom slightly more better known in the industry than the other, but we're going to get the other one well known as well. So my first guest today, Megan 18, is the Arla regional representative for Oxfordshire and Berkshire. Don't you know? Crowned the TikTok queen by none other than Christopher Watkin, and general all-round good guy of the industry. Good morning, Megan.
What's my family of the week thing to shame, doesn't it?
It sort of does, doesn't it? Unless Christopher Watkin is going to call you a queen, You've not really made it.
I've seen your TikToks, Simon, and I think you could take the crown.
I fundamentally did, and this is again, I've called just about every major decision wrong. When I logged into TikTok all those years ago and thought this will never be a business platform, so mistakenly christened that one, my personal one, the Kerfuffle Club business account. I've got to kind of what do they call it? Pivot what I do on that platform, I suggest.
I was thinking more about the one that appeared on the show a couple of weeks ago that didn't actually go onto TikTok because I tried to stitch it and it didn't arrive.
Thank God for that. The fact that I don't even know what it does shows the sheer volume of work that I have here. But anyway, yes,
I'm trying to see if I've still got that set. Unfortunately, I've deleted that video, and I think that's probably best left that way. I will, however, introduce our other guest. Mr. Andrew Sape is a personal safety and self-defense expert. This is me at my peak Alan Partridge moment, Simon. It might go that way. But Andrew has a great background in this and has also been running courses to train estate agents and other loan workers. So we're going to be talking to Andrew as well. Good morning, Andrew.
I didn't realize our guests now needed security to come on a podcast, but that's pretty impressive.
They're all such high profile, Simon.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you never know what comes at you on this show.
Always be prepared. Step number 1.
Excellent.
So,
how do we kick off the show?
Well, we always kick off the show with that ridiculous theme tune. We've done that,
Yes,
but the other way that we normally kick off a show is to introduce a topic in the most ridiculously banal and humorous way, and then sort of change it up a bit that it gets very serious. So
change speed, change the angle, and come at it.
Change the angle and everything. So I'd like everybody to just take a couple of short minutes and look at this classic clip about possible intimidation on viewings.
And this is the dining room.
Oh, that is a lovely sized room.
Yes, they are big in these houses. Most of them have been converted into flats, so to get one like this, bit of a lucky find.
How many bedrooms is it?
It's 2, but there is the box room, which could be an office or could be used as a 3rd bedroom.
I think we definitely need 3 double bedrooms.
Did I ask you? Did I ask you?
No.
Shall we move into the kitchen?
Oh, lovely kitchen.
Well, it's not the biggest one I've seen, but they have made great use of the space. The fridge is set into the wall.
Oh, that is a nice touch.
And there's a fully electric hob.
I really don't like electric. You can't gauge the heat properly.
Did I ask you? Did I ask you? Look at me. Look at me in the eye. Did I ask you? Don't vex me, yeah?
Boom! And you could probably negotiate the washer dryer. Shall we pop upstairs? So, that was the house. Any more questions?
I don't think so, darling.
Well, I do have another couple coming to see it this afternoon. Second viewing, so...
I mean, I really like it, but is it a bit too expensive for us?
Look, I know this is the most expensive purchase you're ever going to make. I understand that. So if you and hubby need a little more time to mull it over, you've got my number.
Well, to be honest, it is a little bit out of our price range.
Did I ask you? Did I ask you?
No,
Buy this house.
I can't afford it.
Buy it.
Look, I have to speak to the bank.
Buy it.
Look, please, no.
Buy it.
Look, please don't make me.
Buy it.
Look, I beg you.
Buy it.
Look, stop it.
Buy it.
You can't do this.
Buy
This
it.
is really unfair.
Buy it.
Please.
Buy it.
I won't do it.
Buy it.
Okay.
Great! Well, let's go back to my office and sign the paperwork. Ooh, I am having a busy day.
Oh, well, there you go. Now,
that
that is possibly the reason I chose that clip is because obviously the estate agent in that case is extremely intimidating, but I think it sort of brings up a little bit. We'll come back to this later, but the reason this subject even came to prominence at all is I saw Megan's fantastic TikTok that she did on this. And if you haven't seen it, here's the more serious side to personal safety on viewings.
Hi everybody, it's Megan, your Arla Regional Executive for Oxfordshire and Berkshire. Now, the reason for my video today is to talk around safety on viewings and, well, personal safety in general. Recently, again, we've seen another poor woman who was just going out for a run, unfortunately not made it home alive. And so it just highlights the need, unfortunately, that we have to make these videos, making sure everyone understands how to stay safe. Personal safety on viewings comes right back to starting when you're in the office. Make sure that you have all the appropriate details and you're vetted as much as possible anyone that's viewing a property. If you don't get a good vibe for them, do not show them. Do not go to places where you haven't told your team you're going. Always make sure you get to the property before so you can check it and make sure that you understand your exit points. Never go up the stairs in front of anybody. Let them go up first and you can go behind them. Always know where your exit point is, always. And make sure you carry a panic alarm.
Well, there you go. Megan put that out probably about a couple of weeks ago. And I saw that, sent it straight to Andrew. And I said, we need to talk about this more, because other than the sort of one major case, which is always reported on in the industry, and that's the Susie Lamplugh case, which dates back to, I think it's 1986. There isn't enough awareness around this topic. And let's face it, Megan, a lot of us are often found in properties on our own, and sometimes without much warning, if you like. So we don't know who we're going to meet there necessarily.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a really tricky one, because I think until you've had an issue on a viewing or an evaluation or whatever, you probably don't really appreciate it. And this isn't about keeping women safe, it's keeping everyone safe. So, I remember doing a course years ago, and they said that statistically more men in a state agency had been sexually assaulted than women. So, I think trying to break that stigma as well about making sure this isn't about just keeping women safe, but keeping everybody safe. I think we put ourselves at risk, so we have to make sure we're taking as best steps as possible to make sure we're all safe.
And Andrew, we watched that clip with the estate agent before, where they sort of get right up in your personal space. But as somebody, if you're looking to read human behavior, what's the general kind of rule of thumb for knowing when somebody's trying to sort of test you on your personal boundaries and getting where are the red lines?
Well, I'm hoping that wasn't your style or isn't your style of selling, but really you need to keep a distance. The further away you are from somebody, the more time you have and the more chance you have to be able to look at their body language and behavior. And often there are signs that people are looking to do something. They might be twitchy or sweating or fidgeting or using their hands or their feet or looking around or looking a little bit unnervy. And, if we go back to the Susie Lamplugh trust for a second, their definition of an personal safety is an individual's ability to go about their everyday life free from the threat. I'll say that again. Free from the threat of fear of psychological, emotional, or physical harm from others. So it's not all about self-defense and protecting yourself physically. As we saw in that video, there can be a lot of just verbal threatening, which can make people feel very uncomfortable.
The problem I have with what you just described there, Andrew, sweatiness, fretfulness, all those other things, that's my average demo. We need to get out for Proptech people. Can I just ask though, Andrew, just in a really serious, I'll say semi-serious, the first time I went to the States to see their biggest conference, and it's called NAR, and I decided to go there just on the 1 year it happened to be in New Orleans, and you can make your own mind of how serious I took the business trip. 30,000 estate agents or targets under one roof, as the public might call it, in just this ridiculous, show of realtors and the busiest stall, because it was an expo stand there, classically brilliantly American, was the one that sold the tasers. And so all the Brits just were obviously rolling around laughing and everything else on that basis. You could only buy two per person. I tried to buy 16 because I thought that might help my aforementioned demo style, my close rate. But it did make me think back on it. I mean, you've got to be people who might feel that that's the route to go down to essentially get tooled up. I'm guessing somebody like you would suggest that actually is probably only going to exacerbate the issue, and ultimately, if you do take out something like that, it's going to escalate it, or even just give the perpetrator another tool to go at you with if you can't control it.
Well, yes, I mean, I would say that self-defense is doing anything that works to protect yourself. Unfortunately, there's the risk of imprisonment, I suppose, if you're carrying any of those things in the UK. Most Americans have at least owned a weapon, used a weapon, or been on some kind of course with firearms over their years. So you would hope that nobody is carrying a weapon when they're coming to be shown around a house. So we need to really, unfortunately, we're at a disadvantage in the UK that we only have our own body and hands and legs and eyes and ears to protect ourselves most of the time. But I think it goes back to what Megan said. A lot of this is in the preparation. I have a lot of people that come to me and say, "Oh, Andrew, can you show me a couple of moves, self-defense moves to keep me safe?" I said, "Well, I can show you a couple of self-defense moves. Whether that's really going to keep you safe, you can't have a 1-hour seminar and expect that you can go out and take on anybody." And I think 99% of your time should be looking out for potentially threatening situations and avoiding those situations. And that prep goes right back into the office. So the more prepped you are, the better chance you have of avoiding something that could escalate and not having to have a taser.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Simon Whale with a taser is what we need out there. At his discretion to you.
Have you seen the video of the Russian fellas who, on taking a drink, they self-taser each other? It's a comedy moment you need to watch. But again, don't do it at home.
I'm going to catch up on that one later. But when we talk about sort of that prep being in the office, office life is extremely busy. Very often, Andrew and I were talking off camera. We're not going to name the particular company that he was talking to at the time, but there were people, for instance, doing viewings on a property who maintained their own list, handwritten lists of buyers, particularly when the market gets very busy and you've got more than one person that wants to see it. Basically, estate agents are going to end up trying to sort of save some time by writing things down and maybe in list form. But we're not doing ourselves any favors unless we're having a full conversation with each and every one of those potential viewers, because there's certain bits of information we need. We need to know where they currently live. I mean, that's one of the, it doesn't always catch them when you ask this question, but if you ask somebody for their home address and they're not able to give it to you without really sort of hesitating, then that's often a warning sign that they're not comfortable giving you that information. Phone numbers, all of these sort of things that are obviously go very nicely straight into our CRM, but they have a more practical reason behind it. I just worry, Megan, and I don't know if you've seen this over various jobs, that we don't often always remember it or take it as seriously as we should do.
Oh, definitely. And I've been guilty of it in the past. And I think, so obviously, I had an experience in a viewing where a guy squared up to me in the face, and I was like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do with this? And Andrew's totally right. Actually, when I think back at that viewing, I think actually he was twitchy when he got there. He was really funny when I asked him to take his shoes off, and then it replays in your mind. You think, actually, I probably could have prevented a situation where I was then being really intimidating, having to push somebody out of a house. So I think Andrew's absolutely right that the key is the preparation and watching the warning signs. I think the problem we have is that different companies have different procedures, and you, as a manager especially, expect everyone to have had the same training that you've had. I've just had a new girl start with me. She's 19, I think, and she's never had any viewing safety training ever. She's been in the industry for over a year. So I'm going to point her over here. I can't work out if you're in the same place on everyone's screen.
I can't work that out either. So I'm just, for good measure, I'm doing that. Okay.
Yeah, go to Simon Whale for training. So I went through it with her, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that." And I was like, "Yeah, it's quite scary." But I always, my biggest thing for everybody is when I train it at work is, if you booked a viewing for me and I didn't make it home, and you had to ring my family and say that something had happened to me, and you hadn't vetted the person properly and you hadn't done all of that, how would that make you feel? And they're like, "Oh, well, yeah, pretty awful." I'm like, well, then don't do it.
Christian Byfield saying, back in the day, and this must be way back in the day, when they still had those, those telephones that you had to sort of wind up like this. Hello, Mayfair 2654. But back in the day, we mandated a landline number. But who has a landline anymore? The truth is, it's just about getting as much info out of them as possible. And we can make the mistake of thinking that this is all about viewings, because those are the situations where typically we're likely to be alone in an empty property with one or more people. But the truth is, I think some of the most intimidating situations can come about where you're in somebody else's home. Don't forget, it's their home turf. It's their home territory. They feel at home there. They know all the exit points. They know what they've got in that house. You haven't got a clue at that stage, and you're being invited into that house to sort of offer them advice. You're already sort of on foreign turf for you.
The Buffalo Bills situation, you mean?
Yeah, I don't want to scare any of our listeners today who are thinking of a career in the state agency, but that can happen. Yeah. Not everybody that we meet are lovely people that you want to spend half an hour having a cup of tea with. And there are some circumstances when you walk in through that door and everything about that place just screams, get the hell out of there. Those situations happen, don't they?
I think the worst one for me, and I'm really ashamed to say it, when I went back to the office, I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to tell you this. I went to a house and it was obviously a repossession. And that wasn't the first thing that I thought about when I got there. And I got there and it was all padlocked from the outside. And I was like, okay, this feels a little creepy. But yeah, I still went in. Why did I go in? And then, I did the valuation and the guy went to shut the door. I went, no, can you keep the door open, please? And that was an okay thing to say, but I'll be honest, I was so wanted the business. I was like, okay, no, I'm just going to stay here, even though this is screaming, don't stay here. And that's the problem, is that we're valuing our business over our safety.
Well, I think your gut reaction is very, sorry, Simon.
No, go ahead.
Your gut reaction is very important. You talk about something looking creepy. Why is it in horror movies? There's a young girl or a young guy running away from something horrific, but they will pick the creepiest, oldest house to run into to get away from them with no lights on, probably no for sale sign either, and run in there thinking that's okay. We don't know if that's their only option, but it does seem a little strange. You must trust your gut instinct, because that adrenaline, butterflies, feeling nervous is your body telling you something isn't right, and 9 out of 10 times it isn't. And that goes for any physical confrontation.
Here's a comment here from Sophie. Evaluation, when I had trouble, the owner locked me in and was drunk. I didn't realise until I was already inside. I was always less wary on evaluation because we are going into their house and didn't think I was vulnerable. It changed how I did things. Yeah, I can...
Interesting to know how she did change things, if there's a follow-up there, Sophie, just to know what immediate steps you kind of changed around. Because the obvious thing is you take a colleague, isn't it? But you can only really do that if you realise that you've seen the property before and it does have to say the padlocks or something else there. I don't know, Andrew, are there other just immediate things in terms of the prep that you could possibly do to forewarn you?
Well, give us your top tips.
just taking going a little aside, and Megan perhaps touched on it, that there are some lone worker policies. Some organized companies have them, professional companies, and some don't. But I have to say, in my experience, many have never really read them, and they're not following the protocols. You talk about preparation, there's a list of health and safety tips or whatever it might be. And I suspect that it's been a file that's either been circulated around the office and you need to tick, this is your consent, I've read this document. Perhaps same as the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, hundreds of pages, you might not expect people to read it, but there should be the basic list of the safety. It's an essential life skill. It's a natural instinct to want to feel safe, and everybody's got that right. So not prepping for something as serious as that, particularly in your work life, seems strange to me. But people become complacent, they get used to it, they cut corners, we're all busy, they make things a little bit quicker, and they perhaps don't tell everybody everything. And you look at Megan's top tips are pretty much all the ones that I would mention in terms of the preparation. Make sure everybody knows where you're going and have an attack alarm. There's lots of alarms on the market. Some are personal attack alarms where you just pull a keychain and it has 130 decibel alarm to alert people. Others, you can wear a pendant, but there are a number of apps that you can have on your phone which can alert people. Some go to the extent where you can actually call a live person, leave a live line open and say, I'm walking to my car, I feel a bit vulnerable, Can you keep in contact with me? And others, you can shake your phone and that sends a silent alert to get somebody to know your location. So those are extra things that you can do to help plan ahead. And it's not, often people say, well, that makes me paranoid and looking over your shoulder. I think there's a big difference between feeling confident and heightening your awareness compared to being paranoid.
And it's the definition. It's the definition, Andrew, of an insurance policy, isn't it? You're not expecting to use it, except but the one thing we do know is it's better to be prepared and have that in the kit bag than to not.
Well, absolutely, and how many people end up having a burglary and then get an alarm after that event? How many people end up getting insurance after an event? With the chances, if we're in a real situation, we might not get the chance to insure our life after it's gone.
So Sophie's followed up on her initial comments. So Sophie said that she's put in place safe words and made sure people have their phone out and in their hand or easily accessible on valuations. Text the office a word to ring you, and then a staff member also gets in the car and gets en route. That is absolute key, actually. Those telltale signs of certain secret words that you can have, that if you were to be in touch with the office, the other person that's with you wouldn't know anything untoward is happening. But if you were to say, I don't know, Megan, I don't want to give away what your safe word is. I'm not going to ask you, okay? But I know
it's fine. But it was just
I know what Simon's is. Simon's is please don't hurt me on the face. Please don't.
Streams in terms of safe words.
Well, for work, so we were actually talking about this in the office this week because someone told me their last work, the code word was David Beckham. I was like, I'm sorry, but if someone said, oh, David Beckham, they're going to be like, someone's thinking of a safe word. So it was a pretty poor safe word. But yeah, we've always had safe words. It was all great until someone joined the company with the name of that person, and then it was all a bit like, okay, now it doesn't work so well. But I actually have a you, Andrew. So we have like what I would call the Gucci of alarms. So we've got, I think it's 24. And basically, it GPS signals you out if you're having an issue. It's a traditional panic alarm. It literally does everything. The issue I have is how do you then get your staff to take them out? And it's typically, I hate to rope all you boys in the same category, but it tends to be the chaps that don't want to take them out. Is there a way that how would you try and persuade a young 20-something negotiator that their safety is as important as the females?
Well, I've come across in in doing these training seminars many young guys who are just as vulnerable as the women, as you mentioned before, if not more so in some cases. And I don't know if you are in your right to have it mandatory that, you know, you guys cannot go on a viewing unless you take your phone and the alarm. I mean, I know there is some software, estate agency software, that has some GPS personal attack kind of personal safety alarms built within them, but I think it would almost have to be mandatory. Now, some staff might say, well, you know, you're always going to know where I am, and I don't want you seeing what I'm doing. People get very private about things, but you're dealing with the public, and you can't underestimate or overestimate anybody. And unfortunately, we could argue that everybody is suspicious. But it's only a minority that want to do us harm. But everybody's got the right to feel safe, and I think making it mandatory in some way. I mean, I'll throw that back to you, Megan. Just on the side of that, is there any kind of privacy policy that you couldn't even have your phone on live to your office while you're doing a viewing, just to keep an open line so people can hear the conversations? Is that allowed, or is it too private?
Andrew, that's a very good question, but I do not know the answer to that question. So no, I don't know is the honest answer. But my argument would be that, you know, Health and Safety in the Workplace Act says that, you know, you have to follow company procedure on fire and, you know, trip hazards or whatever it might be. Surely this is just an extension of the Health and Safety Act. You know, our job is to be protected in and out of the office. So surely us saying, actually, you've got to carry some sort of panic alarm is part of that.
It should do. I think really, with so many things in our industry, it's only our company's policies and procedures are only as good as the people that are leading those companies. So for instance, you'll see this, Simon, when you go into different estate agencies, that some of them are they're just bang on their game, and they have, and those are the companies that, generally speaking, have invested in training of some sort or another. And so some companies take that more seriously than others. And then there are others that just kind of learn from doing mistakes and kind of their own mistakes as well. And I think that's the danger. I think that people need to take it seriously at a sort of leadership level. And maybe as an industry, we need to take it seriously, because when you think about it, we are, I'm not saying we're singular, but we are certainly one of those professions that gets to go into a property in situations where we are going to be putting ourselves at risk. And you meet the great sort of pantheon of different people that you will meet in this job is fantastic. And if you speak to anybody about a state agency and ask them, why do you love a state agency so much? Eventually someone's going to give the wanky answer, oh, it's the people that I love. But if you ask them what it is that you hate about this job, eventually they'll give you the wanky answer, it's the people.
Normally as they're applying for a job at a Proptech company, I've had enough of the great unwashed.
Let me back in.
No, but ask you on that, Andrew. Is estate agency disproportionately more at risk, more dangerous, just because of the dynamics of what we're talking about here with it, or are there other industries that are just as vulnerable?
I think any industry, I think estate agents are, because pretty much, yes, you've got some background and name and phone number, you might be able to do a bit of research on somebody, Facebook, and kind of get an idea of what they're like before you go and meet them. But any industry where there is lone working, sales reps, for example, as well, who are often out. And we talk about prep, and we talk about people often say, well, it doesn't happen, it's never happened, so I'm not really that bothered. And people are not thinking about a physical threat. But you would never, we go back to health and safety, you would never walk on a construction site without a hard hat, yellow helmet on, nor a high vis. Why would you go and do a viewing without some kind of ability to protect yourself, with an alarm, with an app, maybe have done some training, and so perhaps they are at slightly higher risk. But as I say, any industry where there are lone workers, and as I say, also, most have policies, but they're not really adhering to them. So if it was in the policy that it was mandatory, that same as you Health and Safety at Work Act, you'd have to have a hard hat on. If you went into a construction site, well, then you have to have your personal safety app or attack alarm with you for every single viewing.
And we as estate agents, other than perhaps, you know, if you're still one of those estate agents that carries a clipboard with them, we've not really got any tools with us that are going to work well as a weapon either. So, you know, because it's worth pointing out, there are other industries where, yes, you might be visiting somebody's house to fix their plumbing or whatever, but you'll have a big box full of heavy things.
A market appraiser, one of those big giraffe cameras, you could get a proper wallet off.
You get a good swing off a giraffe camera.
One, you know, there's another one. Just looking at the suppliers, obviously me shamelessly thinking at it from the supplier point of view. There are people that are putting their minds to this from the preparation point of view. There's Identity Checker, who I know have been talking to the Susie Lamplugh Trust, for example, which is about validation of IDs of everybody going out on the viewings. That they're quite new to the market, but I think they're going to hit it quite hard again, and it'll be that Pareto 20% of agents that I think will be the early adopters there. You've got people like Akaboom, who, okay, I don't think they started off, let's be honest, with the social media sort of identifier thing, or they do it for obviously a bit of a more stalky, let's understand who you're going to go and see. But it's a wonderful feature for being able to validate that somebody is real. And, you know, as long as they don't have sort of loads of you know, stuffed heads on the wall in their social media posts, there's clues there. And then finally, even people like, you know, people like Street on the CRM side, I know that they've put in some security elements purely on this, and I'm sure I'm missing some. What you have made us realize here, actually, though, we do need to actually get security, David, down as a solution in its own right on Kerfuffle as well, don't we? Because
segues in Mr. Andrew Sape, whose company do provide those kind of training solutions, and are going to be joining us as a Kerfuffle supplier very shortly. But Andrew,
can I just say just for a minute though, because I think this is really important. That wasn't an engineered.
Oh, it was a perfect setup, mate. I took it.
No prep for this.
I took it.
Always be closing.
he teed it up. I'm going to knock it in. Andrew,
knock it out.
Typically, Andrew, so let's say an estate agent says, you know what, you're right. We've got loads of loan workers. Effectively, we've not brushed up on this for years. I'm going to call Andrew down. He's going to give us a call. What can they expect to see? What can they expect to learn? And do I need to bring my own towels?
Probably. I have to say, not wanting to belittle the content of what I deliver, but it is not rocket science. It is a lot of common sense. Nobody listens to what I have to say and go, oh, what, you're saying I should take my phone with me, you know, or some basic things. But people have often said to me, well, we do have a loan worker policy, but actually we would like you to bring that to life. And I think that's the key. Often it is just a sheet or a list of tips or recommendations or something that a company want you to try and observe. And I would suggest that you have somebody that is a trained personal safety professional that can actually help bring that loan worker policy to life, or can even help you establish one. Because I know some of the seminars I've delivered, people have made changes to their loan worker policy because we've highlighted some areas, we've talked through some scenarios with the staff there, and it's highlighted things are happening that the management didn't appreciate, and that goes back to the complacency. So we would look at a lot of what Megan talks about in terms of the prep before the call and having all the information, making sure everybody knows where you're going. We would talk about personal safety apps and number of ways, but we would really talk about scenarios. If I think of all of the people that I've taught self-defense to, we always do scenarios because everyone is different. You cannot show somebody, you could go on a martial arts course for 3 months and learn loads of different moves, and then somebody just pounces on you from the back and you haven't really talked through that. And I think that's an area where a lot of people fail, because you need to be practicing on a regular basis. You need to practice techniques that instill muscle memory and instinct So scenarios are quite key, and that's something that I like to cover during these seminars.
I hope you're going to bring some of your props with you.
I've got plenty of props, and you mentioned about not carrying any tools as estate agents, but there is a section that talks about using everyday objects as weapons, and that could be anything from a pen to a credit card to a phone to a magazine to a kettle, really anything that you can get hold
Jason
of.
Bourne.
A little bit like Jason Bourne, yeah. But we're not trying to perhaps blow up the house with the viewing person in there.
Okay.
Viewer. What
do we call them?
Person. Are they a viewer? A viewee?
I think Megan just calls them hostages.
John Wick's who you're thinking of. Taking people out with a pencil is who does that?
Well, we might need it one day, but hopefully not.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we're going to and Megan, you've got a 4-year-old's birthday party today.
I do.
So I'm mindful that your time is at a premium today, and thanks for joining us. Are you enjoying the what could be now described as we're entering the spring of Megan 18? You seem to be everywhere at the moment, both on TikTok, every bit of social media. You are quite prominent at Arla. You're somebody who's not afraid to use their voice, and it seems like you just came from nowhere overnight. I'm sure that's not the way. There's a whole origin story over here. But what does it feel like to be a sensation?
I don't think I'd call myself a sensation, but I owe it all to you, David Mintz, because you interviewed me first.
Oh yes, that's me. I find I uncover the lost talent and bring them out. But it was Amy. I think it was
Megan. You should see the other 99 videos.
I owe it all to you.
It was Amy Shields, I think, that recommended that you and I speak, and the reason that she recommended that was because you and her had worked previously together, and she was quite impressed. And generally speaking, what I'd say is, and it's not just about you. Unfortunately, I have to take some of the credit away from you, but all of you. And when I say all of you, there are a group. I think you jokingly refer to them as the Spice Girls at Arla. But there's a considered sort of group of you that really are devoting all their efforts and energy into making this industry fun, responsible, and approachable, and a little bit more professional without being stuffy. So you've somehow, and that was always the difficulty of organized groups such as the RICS or ARLA or NAAA back in the day. They got too high on their own supply when it came to the importance of the badge, where you guys keep it real.
That wasn't even planned. We just did
that. Wasn't planned. That was just. So does it from your point of view? Does it feel like there's I mean, do you guys sit down and say, right, this is what we're going to do over the next 6 months? Or is this you guys just living your own lives and it just happens to come out in that way?
Trade secret. We're just totally winging it. Fake it till you make it. So Sophie, our lovely Sophie that's just posted there, that's Sporty Spice. You would mess with her now with a high kick. We sort of made this little group of we just all get on so well. So we're all super geeky and super passionate. And I think that for us, the industry shaped into being a bit of a boys' club over the years of the same faces, the same names. And I think for us, it was more about, I guess, a little bit of female empowerment. But then David Votter would sit there and say that, well, technically he's not got the right pipework for that tagline, but he is definitely an ally of us. But yeah, I honestly, we're just being us, and I said all along that if I was going to join Arla, it had to be as me and not as someone I was pretending to be. So just being me.
But that sort of echoes the organization itself, also just getting real and dealing with the things that it can actually add value within this sort of industry, as opposed to perhaps resting on its laurels. And not recently, I have to state, you're under new leadership, but at a time it was just this sleeping giant that didn't do much.
Yeah, and I think that what I really like about the current regime we got going on at Arla is, like, Nathan, the first time I met him, he was like, love what you're doing on social media. You know, so he's really into this sort of bringing everyone their personalities out, and you know, we've got a great presidential team at the moment, and you know, there's just so many good people who really love the industry but aren't super stuffy about it. And I think that as an industry we can be a bit stuffy, but we're just sort of, you know, doing our thing.
And presidentially, I know that we are headed fast towards the David Votter era of presidency. A lot of us in the industry very excited about what that might look like and what it's shaping up to be.
Sachets is what it's going to look like.
And you've also got Harry Truman fast coming up the ranks as well, as vice. And obviously the way it works out is that vice then goes on to be president, so you pretty much know where the succession and legacy is going to be and the type of people that you've got coming up. When are we going to see Meghan 18 in a presidential election?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe watch the space. See where this year goes.
Come on, announce it. Are you going to run? Meghan 18, are you running?
4 more years. 4 more.
I'm going to run this year.
Hey, we got it out of you. Take that, Watkins. We deliver the big scoops.
That's a Kerfuffle exclusive right there. Andrew, I know you sat there patiently. I know that you have provided close protection security in the past. Could you give Meghan? Could you run alongside the presidential limo, sort of talking into your wrist?
Oh, that'd be a great look.
If I had to, I would be delighted to escort Meghan.
Meghan, can I suggest as well that with 18 being obviously so prominent there, I don't think 4 more years. Go for 18 years and just make it a dynasty.
Well, I mean, I could, but I think everyone would definitely be sick of me by then. It's funny. I actually said to the Spice Girls, I said, "Oh, should I tell everybody?" And they were like, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "They won't bring it up. Don't worry, we won't talk about it." And here we are.
Yeah.
So, we've got a long way to go.
Clear, there will be no refunds if you now don't make it. The kerfuffle bounce.
We're very good at. We're very good at spotting future president material.
We are exceptionally good. That's because we talk to everybody. So we get if we talk to all of them on stage, we get it there. Meghan, can I just ask you just to bounce back there on a serious question now, because there's been a load of rumbles going on this last few weeks, and not just the crab course I ate last night. But over just how women feel they are supported or otherwise from within this industry, I like to think it's becoming more enlightened, and I accept I might be a little bit more optimistic than most. But you, as a woman within the industry, do you feel largely ignored by the rest of the industry? Do you feel you're having to do it all yourself? Do you feel supported? What are the terms that come to mind when you feel about what it is like to be a woman in the industry today?
That's a really good question. I think that when I joined the industry, so I was only 18, 19 when I started, 18 ironically, I felt very much like I had to do all my qualifications and talk a lot of talk to get to the same place that a chap would, you know, of my same age. And I think it's only when I reached probably late 20s that when I turn up on evaluation, I wouldn't get this look of, oh, it's a woman. I think now there are lots of people fighting the fight, and you know, you guys are included. You know, David Votter. You know, we've got some really amazing big figures who are really pro-female, you know, empowerment. And I think as long as we're all working to that same place, then that's all we can kind of hope for. Yeah, we still get issues. You know, the reality is I send a message to David pretty much every day of, I post a video on personal safety and I get some guy being like, hey, can I have your Snapchat? And I'm like, oh, really? Like, come on. But the men that post those videos never get lechy comments. So I think there's still a long way to go, but we're still better than we were 12 years ago.
I think we are let down, aren't we? But I mean, because you're quite right there. The things that men will put out there, and then you will put exactly the same thing. And some of those friends of mine, female friends in the industry, will then literally show me the messages that they're getting on. And sometimes on some of these people believe that LinkedIn is a dating site, don't they? Which is, to men is just, you just can't get your head around. Hi, princess. Hey, beautiful. And it was like something, you were talking about AML or something like that. It's mind-blowing.
I think it's definitely got to be a favourite of mine that I do that video that you've just watched, and someone was like, "Hey, babe, can I have your Snapchat?"
I'm sorry about that. I learned the lesson.
Also, the guy looked about 12, and I literally was like, "I'm not sure you're old enough to be on this app. I think you should get off. Go home to your mum."
But it's a problem. It is a problem out there online. There were so many different channels of communication. So just to sort of put the word out about this podcast, I think we end up updating 2 Facebook groups, 2 Facebook pages. It goes on Twitter, it's on Instagram, and that's posts and stories. And then you're on TikTok, LinkedIn. The list goes on and on and on. But the pests are everywhere, aren't they? There's not just one particular platform that they like to use. They're very good at sort of spreading themselves online. And some of the comments and stuff that you get, when I read them, I think, it's just because I'd like to think most of the guys I bump into are relatively nice, sort of modern, forward-thinking guys, but
can I just jump
on this dogs video? Out there.
I think this is Rob. Sorry, you'll anonymise a moment. Maybe you want to stay there. You would be surprised. This is from a man, obviously. I get so many WhatsApp single ladies groups sent to me. I avoid like the plague, not as it could be a hacker. I like the idea there that he hasn't done it. He hasn't said no to it for the right reason, just because it might actually be a hacker.
It'd pretty much be the only reason I ever get sent a WhatsApp single ladies group is it will be a hacker.
I think the moral of the story is, for all of the people that like to send these messages, just without fail, 100%, they will go to David Mintz, and you can use that as what you will, because I say things and he puts them on your podcast. So
there you go. If you want to be exposed,
I'm happy to name and shame if you've got some particular ones, especially the guys who feel this need to send a photo of a certain part of their anatomy. I've never got that because I have to tell you something, guys. We're covering it on this podcast first because I don't believe any other podcast will bother touching the hot topic of the dick pic, but it is not a part of our anatomy.
David, George, ignore all this.
Sorry,
George needs to know the kind of gentleman he needs to grow up to be. That is not a very chivalrous thing to do to a lady. But secondly, it's just not a part of our anatomy that photographs particularly well. Nobody wants to see it.
Okay, at that point, I've got to now go to, and I promise this wasn't, I haven't suddenly become blushing or anything, but I have got to take these idiots around London. So, George.
Enjoy it. Have a great day out. We're gonna. Oh, what have you got there? Captain America.
Captain America. So yes, he was running around the room last night, as I said, shouting, "We can do this all night." So look, lovely to have you guys on the show and everything else, but you can see it's going to deteriorate quickly. So have a great day, Megan, Andrew. Look forward to talking to you further.
Thank you, Simon. Have a good day.
Guys,
bye, Simon. Right now, the real show gets started, guys. Here we go.
Megan, I would say to you that there's always, I'm sure you know, there's always going to be haters and people that want to be inappropriate. But I think the passion that you have, and hopefully I share a similar passion about spreading the word. If you're passionate and genuine, your message will always get across, and the haters and the inappropriate people will just fall by the wayside and be ignored for the most part by the majority. So
and if in doubt, we'll make a whole podcast based on all the things that we said, and we'll name and shame them all.
Yeah, I think so. It's the way to deal with those sort of things. Here we go. Sophie Lang again. Sporty Spice. I think it's about making the whole industry more diverse and working to make sure everyone who wants to be a part of it is part of the big conversations. There are so many people in our industry with extremely valuable and insightful ideas. It doesn't really matter what their genitalia is or how they identify. It is just so great to get so many people's opinions and thoughts from around the country and hear so many passionate property professionals. It does seem like we've got we're riding this wave of, it's the golden age of people being able to give their opinion out for free. And that's mostly, well, it's podcasts, it's social media. There's no doubt about it, Meg. I don't think you would have managed to get your message out as far and as wide without social media.
No, absolutely. But can we just, for a second, go back to Sophie's comment, and can we all just say amen?
Amen, amen, Sophie. Absolutely.
So eloquently put, Sporty Spice. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that the reality is that we've all got to shout a little bit to get out there. I think the important thing is that, you know, I think when you talk about like feminist subjects or women empowerment subjects, you do get a lot of people going, well, you know, I'm a feminist, and you're like, yeah, but it's not about making women better than men. It's about making us equal. And if anyone wants to look at how far we've got to go, check out Elle Reese and her post she does loads for female empowerment and equality. She sent me a link, and it was like, so for every 80p a pound, I'm going wrong. For every pound a man makes in a estate agency, a woman makes 80p. You know, so we're still far off. You know, we've still got a way to go. So we've all got to fight the fight. And Sophie's right. We don't want to be sitting here talking about the fact that we're juggling being mums and doing our jobs. We want to talk about property stuff.
So is that what we can expect from a Meghan 18 vice presidential run, that you're going to be pushing the big topics of equality and leveling that playing field?
I just think, for me, and what I think Harry, who obviously will be president before, and David, I think we're all on the same page. This industry needs a shake-up. We need some fresh voices. We need some diversity. We need some inclusion. And we just need to shake up this old boys club that we've managed to get stuck into. So, and that also goes back to nicely to like what we're doing with Andrew. This isn't about keeping females safe. It's about keeping everyone safe. We all should be equal.
And I think that is actually bringing it full circle. I think this past couple of years during lockdown has forced the men in our industry perhaps to have a moment of introspection where they need to sort of admit that they're not as hard and as scary as they thought they were, that we can as men suffer from mental health. It has been huge, particularly for people that deny their emotions sometimes and just get stuck in routine. When that routine was taken away from them, it all started to come out during lockdown. So I think there is I'm not saying that we need equality. I know that you guys have got a lot further to go than we have, but there has been a bit of leveling up in terms of that coming out and being okay to talk about. Because I don't think you used to hear about it a couple of years ago, did you?
No, and I think for years I sat there. I've had conversations where people have got promoted over me, and I was pregnant. I thought, okay, I'm going to sit here. I'm going to keep my mouth shut. And why? Why did I do that? You know, yeah, I was pregnant, but I was always coming back to work. You know, why wouldn't I have a promotion to come back to?
It's that superhuman ability to grow another human being inside you that both Andrew and I lack, but you do so well, and you manage to do a job at the same time.
Well, I always used to say to the guys in the office, I'm like, you might have got a deal today, but did you grow any organs?
Here we go. Jim Parker, who is our man from Waitrose last week. I still don't understand why people see other groups differently. It's the best person for the job. Plus, why should they be paid a different amount for doing the same job? Amen. It's not a mandate. It's there unofficially. But it always has been, hasn't it? That women traditionally just never got paid as highly as the men. Do you see any signs of that changing at all, Megan?
I hope so. I really hope so. I think a lot of the work that's been done, certainly in our industry over the last year, you know, I personally think that we really have seen really good traction in the press, and that, you know what it's like, you know, when you've got some social proof, it suddenly pushes things further and further into the forefront. Literally not a mandate. Yeah, so I think we are definitely the best place possible. When we went back into furlough, in the lockdowns, that was probably where we really, set back, because more women were furloughed than men. We were expected to look after the kids and do the homeschooling, and our jobs were almost not considered as important. I might add, not my company. I had to work through lockdown. It was very stressful. But yeah, I think that we are in the best place possible for it, but there's still a lot to do. So
okay. I'm gonna throw a difficult question from the comments at you. This is more Arla related. What is Megan going to do to increase the membership past the glass ceiling of only 1/3 of lettings agents in Arla? It's been stubbornly at that level for years. I'm going to add on another question to that. Do you think that the fact that we're all going to have to get to grips with proper training and ROPA is actually going to force some agents into the waiting arms of Arla so that you can take care of all their compliance?
Yes, I think that ROPA will have a massive impact on that. But I think that if you had a different level of voices, let's be frank about it. When I used to sit there at the age of 20, 21, and I'd look at the Arla presidents or the NEA presidents or whoever, they didn't represent me as a young property professional. But now we suddenly do have that. We have that representation in David Rotter. We've got the mums being represented by Anne Harrod. We've got the representation. And I think that in itself will speak to the younger generation. The current president, Maxine, her big thing is about bringing the young people through the ranks and getting them, set up. I think for a while we went through the whole, millennials, they're lazy snowflakes, all that crap. No, we're starting afresh now. We're a younger company. We've got a younger, forefront. We've got people who actually do the job, who run businesses and run families at the same time. So I personally think just by being better represented, it will help increase membership.
It's a problem though that everybody's got. It's not just our industry. It's not just one organization. And in fact, Andrew and I were talking about this the other week. In all voluntary organizations, to get young people, Andrew's the proud and successful father of 3 on the verge of teenage people that he's growing at home. But it's hard to get them interested, isn't it, at a young age, at being signed up to organizations and taking leadership roles. It's not as cool as it would have been one day previously, Andrew.
No, absolutely not. And we are, as 2 of my kids, the boys are getting older, wanting to get them more involved in voluntary work and charitable work, because it's important for them, but it can also form part of Duke of Edinburgh awards and that kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. It's not cool. It's not cool at all. But you have to try and tap into what their passions are. And that can help steer them perhaps in getting more involved in certain things. But I don't understand the language. I don't understand the language on text. I don't understand the language about actually speaking. So having a translator.
If you ever need a translator, get in touch with Megan. She's down with the kids.
I think that would be right. I need a translator to understand what they're actually saying. It's just a series of grunts and eye rolls, really.
Sounds bliss, man. It sounds bliss. Christian Byfield, property markers come on leaps and bounds under Nathan's recent stewardship. More of this evolution is needed. Jim Parker, it was like the Scottish Association of Landlords didn't represent landlords that rented to people on benefits. It was run by people that rented to working people. So I ended up becoming the chairman of the NLA in Scotland. So I guess if nobody's there to do it for you, you roll your sleeves up and do it yourself. But that's another one of the sort of agendas out there, is to sort of make our industry a little bit more friendly to people that are trying to approach it at customer level. So we spoke last week about this whole discrimination thing, Megan. You brought it up, particularly with regards to same-sex couples. But we also said that there's been for years a great discrimination of that sort of DSS sector, if you like, that we used to call DSS, but people that were in receipt of benefits, that's still fairly prevalent in an industry where we've been told to stop that sort of thing. Getting better, but still really long way to go, right?
I think so. I mean, you know, if you go on my TikTok and scroll through, the amount of questions I get from people that are in that situation and they're just not getting anywhere, you know, and I feel like I have to come in and be like, hello, here's the article, you know, tell them, you know, they can't just discriminate. But the fact is that it clearly is still happening. And look, you know, I get it. The Jim said last week on the podcast that actually it's not about the people, it's about the way that we're paid, or the landlord has paid benefits, that is the problem. Now, if suddenly they just listened to that and these local authorities went, okay, the issue isn't the people, it's us, maybe we'd have a better chance at it. And that is the reality of it, is that they pay in arrears, we pay in advance. So essentially, as soon as they move into a property, they're already in arrears. You know, so, and that doesn't sit well. You've got mortgages to pay, you've got all these big factors you've got to consider. You know, landlords have overheads too. Why would they want that when, you know, supply and demand means that we've got 10 people to every property at the moment? It is down to the local authorities. They need to change the way that they pay their money.
Well, only through that dialogue that you guys are having out there at Arla, but the rest of the industry as well, are we going to be able to change that? I've kept you all captive now for at least an hour. I'm going to let you get on and enjoy the rest of your day. I can see that Andrew's got some almost heavenly sunshine coming through there.
I'm not used to that.
It's Manchester. We don't normally get sunshine in this part of the world at all.
No.
But I'm gonna love you and leave you. I know you've got this birthday party to go to, Megan. I think that in closing, I think that safety is something that we shouldn't overlook. Highly encourage people to start, not to wait really to sort of plan this sort of training or to get on top of their policies. Is really to sort of get on it today, because you owe it to your staff and your team, and just one horrible incident is all it takes. So really, everybody should get on top of it. Have a great week out there in property world. Thank you to Mr. Andrew Sape, and of course to Megan 18. And we will see you all next week with my guest next week is going to be Vicky Bibris from Location. So don't miss it. See you later, guys.